Morning, everybody. Early in the morning on the 29th. Actually, yeah, the 29th of January. I'm still looking at the Pacific. Previous video was talking about this chemtrail operation that was happening out there, and it just goes on this evening. We can see California here, Oregon, Utah, or Nevada, Utah, but just off the coast. We've got this ridge coming up. The center of it, the axis is about right in, well, actually right here at the peak of the ridge. But what I'm seeing is this incredible operation at the apex of this ridge, at this center. So on the western side of it, we've got chemtrails, which is largely just out of view. But on the eastern side, many, many, many trails. Let's go to the GFS, which is the model off the coast of California. So we're just looking right in here is where this operation is happening. The developing trough in the southwestern states that will swing outward. We'll see numerous, probably a very aggressive chemtrail day coming up to on the 29th across Texas and through the mid-Mississippi Valley. But this is where they're engineering, is this little differential right in through here. What this amounts to down the road, we can only guess. But it is a big operation, and it is employing a lot of planes. So we'll see what effect it has on this developing trough in the west. All right, just coming to past 1 o'clock mountain time, and I'm looking at the 6.5 micron water vapor imagery, and once again out in the Pacific, where we have a ridge of high pressure. You can see the southerly flow over the top of the ridge, and then it arcs over and then begins its descent southward along the California coast. And you can see the numerous trails as they work the peak of this ridge. Time and time again, you can see almost the chicken's feet patterns that they're laying out here. And then that action, as we've seen many emails come in today from California into Oregon of these particular trails. And if we step out a bit farther, another perspective with water vapor imagery, this is the area we just looked at here. And then this whole plume of moisture, we're seeing trails. You can see them extending out. And then as those particulates sequester the moisture, they impact the ratio. This is the dry air, this is the moist air. And so they are drawing this moisture out or gathering it up in these little stripes. And this all has to deal with engineering the height and the proximity of this ridge to the west coast. We look at the analysis this morning from the GFS to 12Z Tuesday morning, and there's the ridge. So they're working this peak. So the question is, how does working or managing this ridge of high pressure determine either the next inbound storm, this little ripple that's coming through and will eventually develop a cutoff trough in the next couple of days, or impact the whole of this trough, which is headed eastbound, which will probably be responsible for some severe weather across the southern states in the coming days. Very quickly, we'll look at the high-resolution satellite imagery, the visible this time off the west coast, and you can see all of those trails as they are measuring and gauging just how the water, the air comes over the top of this. And for the, let's just say, the common National Weather Service, they use satellite soundings to do this, but the military, the black ops, they can actually fly the planes out there and leave these marks so they can ascertain just exactly what the atmosphere is doing in these particular locations. If you saw my video yesterday, you heard me sort of rage against the disruption of what should be normal rain and snowfall patterns. This is another one where you can see the tops of the clouds diffuse over the mountains. We have a little bit of snow, a little bit of precipitation. Behind me it does accumulate a little bit more over the mountaintops, and we're getting some light snows, but it is negligible amounts compared to what had been or would be if they would just leave the atmosphere alone. So you can see it goes from this sort of semi-diffuse stuff, gets a little more integrity, a little more density, but still, the top is hairy without definition, so the integrity of the updraft has been profoundly impacted, inhibiting the formation of the ice crystals, which would lead to snow, or the raindroplet consolidation, which would lead to rainfall. This happens time and time again globally. More of this hazy stuff. You can see how the cloud just is so weak, there's just nothing left of it. Just wanted to give you a scan of my horizon as I get closer and closer to sunset. Kind of peering over the top of my camera, so it's not the best mobility I've got. But there's the cumulus. They're out there. They're kind of on the horizon. There's the sun, so it's not more than 15 minutes away from setting. You can see how these cumulus are relatively healthy. But then on top of this, you can see the hairy bottom of this deck of clouds right here. And ultimately, in time, as we get through spring, and I'll share more and more examples of this with you, this here is a waveform that probably either emanates from below. I'm going to back out a little bit. Across this. So it appears like we have these massive disks, some a few kilometers in width and some many kilometers in width, and they are rotating, spinning. And how they interact with the different layers, one layer on top of another layer, one rotating one way, one rotating on another way. In between those two, you get spinning, you get shear. And that shear can be turned up depending on the orientation of the disks. So when we watch chemtrails, we can see how many are level flight. That's very easy to discern when they're passing due south or due north. You can see if they are in level flight or if they're on an angle. And if they're on an angle, then they are in the process of orienting these disks. These disks, which then provide the rotation, the spin, so we end up with these little holes or centers of rotation within the clouds. And you stack these holes horizontally, you get no substantial development. If they go vertically, then you can get rain, you can get snow, you can get thunderstorms. And as we get into spring severe weather season, watch how many thunderstorms don't develop vertically, but are profoundly tipped over on their side. So a thunderstorm that may top out at, say, 40,000 feet, but really it's 50,000 feet in length or 55,000 feet in length. So when you begin to tip weather on its side, you have more latitude to play with it before it, let's just say it pops up on the radar as something that is anomalous. In here, this is the cloud kind of falling apart. You can see the crystallization, the weeping out, and regular meteorology would say, well, these clouds have just iced out. And so they become non-productive. My question I pose back is, what triggered the icing out? And that's where they say, well, it's just a natural storm development. And then all of us are keenly aware that there are other forces at play in the atmosphere that are beyond thermodynamics and just regular heat, humidity, and the motion of weather. There is some substantial weather that originates in the ionosphere and is controlled electrically, and the particulates that the chemtrails introduce into the atmosphere enable them more latitude in their geoengineering programs, a better grip on the atmosphere. All right, so here's one cloud here. And this side is coming together. This side is diffuse. All right, there's our sunset. Kind of a beautiful afternoon. It's cold, it's brisk. There are a few snow showers coming out of this, or a few flurries. But that's about it. The mountains behind me to the east are getting some light snows, maybe 1, 2, 3 inches up top, when it should have been a 15-inch snowfall.